In this video, we're going to look at the text split function in Microsoft Excel. You can use this function when you want to split or parse out strings of text on your spreadsheet based on a single delimiter or multiple delimiters that you specify. Now, one thing I need to state right now is that this function is currently only available in Office 365 or Office Online. So in this first illustration, we have a list of employee names along with their skill sets that they possess. And each of the values in this list is separated by a comma, so that is our delimiter. So we want to use the text split function to split these values out by the commas into multiple columns. So I'm going to insert text split. First input is our cell reference that we want to split, and then the second input is our delimiter for splitting it out into columns. So that is going to be a comma, and that needs to be enclosed in double quotes. So I'm going to hit enter. You can see that splits that out based on our comma delimiter into multiple columns. What we can also do is split this out into rows instead of columns. So if we wanted to do that, I could just add a comma here to skip over the column delimiter argument and make this a row delimiter. So when I do that, it displays that vertically in rows. But for now, I'm going to keep this as columns and drag this down so you can see what this looks like. Now you can see here and here we have empty cells because over here we have nothing between two consecutive delimiters. So we have two commas in a row and the same down here. So this function by default will pick that up as an empty cell. So if we want to ignore that, what we can do is add another comma that will take us to the row delimiter argument, but we want to skip over that. So we're going to add another comma that takes us to the ignore empty argument. So by default, it is false. It includes empty cells. We can set that to true to ignore empty cells. And when I drag this down, it's going to skip over any blanks between our multiple consecutive delimiters. So in this next example, we're going to look at a situation where we have two different types of delimiters for the same string. So we have a data set of different categories of fruits for a grocery store inventory warehouse. So we have the product name such as Gala Concord for apples and grapes. We have our first delimiter, which is a dash, the inventory ID number for each item. Our second delimiter, which is a semicolon, and the broad category for that inventory item. So we're going to insert the text split again. First input is our cell reference, and then since we have multiple delimiters this time, we have an array of delimiters, I should say. We need to nest that in curly brackets because curly brackets can handle arrays. So our first delimiter is a dash. So we have a comma, and then our second delimiter, which is a semicolon. And don't forget to add a closing curly bracket. And then that splits this out based on our multiple different delimiters. So now what I want to show you is a dynamic way to produce these values vertically, one right after the other. So I am going to get rid of this and just move this over one cell. So instead of a hard value cell reference here, I'm going to insert the indirect function, and that just allows you to refer to a cell reference as a string or text and still return that cell value from that reference. So for our column reference, I'm going to insert our column, and then I'm going to use the and symbol to join this to the column function. And the column function by itself is going to return the number of whatever column we're currently in, which right now we're in column C, so that would return column 3. So this would, in the indirect, produce the value from cell A3, but we want A2. So what I'm going to do from this column function is subtract 1 from it. That will return the value in cell A2 and do our split. Now, right now, we still have this set as column delimiters. So what we can do is add an extra comma to move this delimiter array to the row delimiter. So that's going to produce this as a vertical split. And since we set up the indirect with whatever column we're in -1, I can drag this over to the right, and it's going to produce all of our inventory items one right after the other vertically. So in this final example, I just wanted to show you that this function is not limited to single characters for delimiters. You could use a sequence of multiple characters or even an entire word. So we have a similar example to the last one, but this time our two delimiters are 3 character strings. So we have our fruit inventory, and we have our first delimiter that comes after the product name is just the abbreviation INV for inventory. We have then our inventory ID, and then our second delimiter, which is the letter CAT, which is short for category. So we're going to insert our function one more time. We have our first input, which is our cell reference. We have multiple delimiters this time, so we're going to use curly brackets again. Our first delimiter is INV, comma, our second delimiter is CAT. So you can see this splits it out based on our delimiters, but for this item here, it does not split based on the second delimiter because by default, the delimiter for strings is case sensitive. So if we want to make this case insensitive, what we can do is go back into our function. Going to add a comma to skip over the row delimiter argument. We're going to skip over the ignore empty argument. So we add another comma there, and then that takes us to our match mode. So the default is a case sensitive. So we can select this option for case insensitive. And now it is case insensitive. Well, that is all for now. Thanks for watching.